Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Slow Flowers meetup for December. I'm Deborah Prinzing, founder of the Slow Flower Society, and I'm delighted that you're joining us today. I'm letting our guests, our participants into the Zoom room. So, welcome to December. It's really fun to have you here today, and we're going to have a very special presentation from Hillary Alger and Joy Longfellow of Johnny's Seeds. And while we're getting warmed up here, I have a few announcements, and it's fun to see some people who are not in the Slow Flowers community, but are in the gardening community, who are here and want to hear about the new flower seed selections, introductions from Johnny. So I think we'll go ahead and get started. And I want to introduce our two guests. Let me bring them onto the screen. Hello, Hillary.
Hi, Deborah.
So Hillary Alger is the flower and herb manager at Johnny's Seeds, and Joy Longfellow is her cohort and the flower trials manager. I hope I'm not butchering your titles too much, but you're the team. You're the flower team at Johnny's, pretty much, right? Or do you recruit other people to help you during the peak season?
We have a little bit of help. We have some good helpers, but yeah, we're Joy's managing most of the trialing and we work together on managing the program.
That's great. And I have visited the trial gardens, and they're nothing short of overwhelmingly impressive. There's massive, vegetable trials, of course, but then when I visited, we really focused on what was happening in the flower trials. There's two different fields you took me to, so there's multiple parcels, right?
Yeah, I think we have about 10 sort of different, we call them different farms. They're different fields around that we use for trialing, seed production, and breeding nurseries.
Wow. And it's all in and around Winslow, Maine. So you guys, have you had your first snow yet?
Yes. Yeah, we have. I think it's about 12 degrees outside right now.
Oh my gosh, that's why you're wearing that nice cozy scarf.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just, by way of context, Hillary and Joy taught a webinar for Johnny Seeds last week. And when I knew that they were going to do this webinar on new flower seed introductions, I asked them if they would come on and do kind of a behind the scenes, deep dive for the Slow Flowers community, because Johnny's is a longtime sponsor and partner with Slow Flowers. And I knew we could get like all the questions answered and get into, some more juicy bits about some of these flowers. So especially like, how did they make this decision, and what do you all think of these flowers? Because I think Hillary and Joy want to hear from our participants on what you think and what appeals to you about it. So it's a little bit of a slideshow, and I think we'll go ahead and get started. And we're recording this, so everyone will have a chance to go back and watch. I will also put the link to last week's webinar and the PDF of the deck that was used last week, and the technical growing information about snapdragons in the chat, which you all can grab. And we'll also put that in our follow-up post about this. So thanks for getting started. And if you have questions, please put them in the chat, and we'll have time to answer those after Hillary and Joy walk us through this. This is like a runway show. Okay. This is our spring runway show for cut flowers. So thank you both so much for doing this, and I'll let you take it away, Hillary.
Great. Thanks. Thanks for inviting us, Deborah. We're always happy to chat with you and the Slow Flowers members. So you can see my screen okay? Looks good.
Yeah, I love all those beautiful pansies. It looks beautiful.
Okay, great. So I think Joy and I will kind of trade off and go through. Feel free to Deborah, ask any questions as we're going along.
Yeah, I'll jump in if I kind of have some questions, and then maybe that'll trigger other people to jump into.
Okay, cool. Well, this is just a little slide that shows some stats on the flower trialing that Johnny's, just to give, it's a little bit of a bragging slide. Those are Joy's numbers, how many varieties trialed and how much bed feed, and it's a little bit of a brag, but it also gives you hopefully a sense of how much effort the Johnny's team enjoy on flowers specifically puts into our trialing program, and how much we're committed to selecting good varieties and providing good information. So that's what that slide is about. And then we can jump right into varieties, and Joy and I are going to trade off. So Joy has the first one here.
Yeah. So hi, everybody, and thank you, Deborah, for having us. This is a really fun opportunity just to talk about some great new varieties this year. So kicking things off with delphinium, we actually have a couple of delphinium varieties that we added to the assortment this year, and this is the first one. This is Guardian Lavender, and just a couple notes about delphinium too. These varieties are first year flowering. This is a first year flowering perennial, so you will get blooms off of typically in the late spring, early summer from a spring planting on this, and then also typically we see a flush a little bit later in the fall as well. And so
Gorgeous.
yeah, really, really beautiful varieties. They're such a classic, kind of elegant and romantic flower. And we decided to add, we offer another series of delphinium, the Magic Fountain series, but the Guardian series, we decided to bring in a couple of varieties here just because of these are hybrid delphiniums, and so they offer a little bit more vigor at the seedling stage, and then also a little bit more uniformity in the plants. And we saw that uniformity come through, especially in the as the plots flowered in the field. So, when on some of the open pollinated varieties, you might see a little bit more variability when that plot comes into flower. But with the Guardian varieties, we saw them flowering pretty uniformly across the plot, which just makes it a little bit easier to harvest, a little more efficient, and a little bit more dependable. And then there's just this really beautiful color too. The lavender, I think, is a good name, but hopefully you can see from the photos that there's also a little bit of blue on those petals as well.
Can you also mention the little icons at the bottom of the screen? Because I love that you included sort of extra features that people might want to know about.
I think the ones we'll see today, the little pair of scissors means it's a great cut flower. I think it's a little bee icon means it's good for attracting beneficials or butterflies. There'll be one that looks a bit like a perfume bottle to indicate the flowers are fragrant, and then a little fork and spoon for edible flowers.
I love it. Well, this is a gorgeous one, and I'm always afraid of growing delphinium because they look so tricky and high profile, only the pros can do it. But I love your advice, Joy, that these do bloom the first year. So I'm going to give them a try.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, a couple of things to keep in mind about delphinium, they do, if you are starting them from seed, you might see some variability in the germination time across, even within the same variety. And I think one thing that we've found really helpful is just making sure that you're keeping the soil moist and evenly wet. The seed has kind of a hard seed coat, and so making sure that it's adequately moist during that whole time, so that it does get enough water into that kind of hard seed coat. That's been helpful. But also, yeah, that was something that stood out about these Guardian varieties. They did seem to germinate pretty uniformly, and then the vigor of those seedlings once they germinated was really strong as well.
Love it. So there's two different color palettes in the Guardian, the blue and the white.
And the white, yeah, the white is a really nice one as well. And I hope that you can see on the photo here, one thing that stood out about this variety was on the unopened buds, and then also on the opened florets too, there's just a little bit of green coloring, which there's the Magic Fountains, there's a white in that series as well that's more of a really clean, solid white. But I liked the almost that, just that a little bit of green on these, I thought it made it a little bit interesting, and also maybe a little bit more versatile in terms of if you're, using it in arrangement with other green foliages or things like that, it seemed to blend well.
Love it. Great. If you have any comments or questions, pop them into the chat. And otherwise, I guess we'll go to the next goodies, the next juicy flower.
I'll just add, I'm sure it won't surprise your members, but in delphinium, the white and that really pretty pale blue or lavender blue are the most popular colors.
We do have one quick question on the delphinium from David Brunton, and that is, how do they do in the heat? Obviously, Maine is not as hot as David's in the DC area and Maryland. Have you heard any feedback about that?
I think, for delphinium, they are more of a cooler season crop. And so they're probably gonna we see this in Maine, and I think you would see this a little further south as well. The plants kind of slow down and stop flowering kind of during that heat of the summer. So they will, bulk up and grow really happily during the spring when it's a little bit cooler. They'll have their first flush of blooms, and then they'll kind of just hold steady until the temperatures cool off again in the fall. And so I would think that, maybe just where he is, they might flower just a little bit earlier and go into that kind of summer slump a little bit earlier than we would see here. But I think
then you made that mention that there is usually a second flush. So is that kind of later in the fall? Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
Great. Thanks, Joy.
Yeah, sure.
So I have the next one. This is a mix of Echinacea. It's a nice tall flowering mix. So a lot of there's been a lot of interest in Echinacea over the last maybe 10 years, I would say, and a lot of breeding work to develop varieties that are shorter, more compact for gardens and for landscape. And so there's a lot of varieties out there, but not so many that are a lot of varieties in a range of colors, but not so many that are make really nice tall cuts. So we like this variety for its really sort of diverse range of colors and for that extra bit of height for cut flowers. And Echinacea is just a classic perennial, very resilient in that it can withstand a little bit of heat and drought. Once they're established, they're really pretty carefree and easy to grow. And this, I hope you can see in this photo, has some really lovely colors. There's almost like a creamy mango in there that I think is my favorite color.
En masse like that, these are just stunning. And just that idea of more and more people being interested in kind of the meadow look or native plants, this sort of fits those kind of profiles of what we're here. We hear from, I think consumers, they think of meadow flowers or wildflowers. They don't, really know what that means. And then we have to kind of create the answer to that question. And I feel like these are just gorgeous. They would check all the boxes.
Yeah. And just, as we're all facing varied weather challenges year to year, just having some really resilient perennials in your back pocket is always a good thing.
Love it. And then David Brunton again asked, is it first year flowering?
Oh, sorry. It is. I should have mentioned that. It is first year flowering. And I think with most first year flowering perennials, you'll get, some nice growth and definitely some blooms in the first year, but it's that second year and beyond, if the plants persist, that they really come into their own and you get a higher level of productivity.
This next variety is a new eucalyptus that we're excited about. Eucalyptus is in really high demand for foliage use, and so we're happy to share this new to us species. There are hundreds of species of eucalyptus out there in the world, and really just a small subset of them are used or known for cut flower foliage use. And so we've been working to expand our assortment and kind of explore some different species for this really important crop. And this particular one came out of that trialing work, and it's really different visually from what you might think of as the classic sort of blue-green eucalyptus, but we think it has a lot to offer.
Hmm.
You can see a couple of the things that stood out in this photo. Hopefully you can see the foliage color. So it's a really nice kind of sage green on the more mature leaves. And then at the tips of those branches, you can see a little bit more red or burgundy coloring. And so the newer growth tends to have that, that color contrast, which is really nice. You can see a great close-up on this slide. You can see that red coloring. You can also see how the leaves sort of hang alternately off of those red stems. Another kind of nice color detail on this variety that's a little different than the classic eucalyptus. We've observed that that red coloring comes out, it becomes a little bit more apparent when the temperatures start to drop in the fall. So eucalyptus for us, we usually have it in the field through October and maybe even into November. And so this is a great photo too, where you can see the habit of those plants. They're very upright and definitely a tree-like habit. They were pretty fast growing for us this year, and just a really fun addition.
That's crazy. This is 1 year growth that we're seeing.
Yes.
and a rainy, cold year, that rainy, cold summer. So really vigorous. And actually, I have I hope you can see this. I happen to have some a nice selection of eucalyptus from Joy's trial that she gave me. I dried in glycerin, and then I have a stem of the teraticornis, and it dried quite differently than the fresh color. It's like a bronzy kind of gold olive color. It's really quite
that
lovely.
is gorgeous.
I was going to say, one other kind of interesting thing about this variety, or that I appreciated, is that the stems kind of strip or clean quite easily. So if you've harvested other eucalyptus varieties like baby blue or silver dollar, they sometimes have that gummy substance on the stems, and this variety doesn't have that. So I found the stems a little bit easier to clean and to work with.
I think we're all going to be trying this one. Joy, a couple questions. Beth Benjamin is asking, do the less mature leaved branches flop when cut? Because I know you trial everything as a cut as well.
Mm-hmm. So we kind of use the same harvesting guidelines for this variety as for the other eucalyptus varieties, in that we wait to harvest until the stems are woody. And so when you cut them, you can see kind of a woody layer around the outside of the stem. And so in general, if they're harvested at that stage, they seem to hold up really nicely. If you are harvesting, kind of from the very tops of the plant or the very young foliage, they don't tend to rehydrate quite as well. But we found, when harvested at that kind of woody stem stage, they hold up really nicely in a vase.
My other question is, how many different eucalyptus did you trial this season or in the last few seasons to get to this choice? Because like you said, there's so many available to work with.
Oh, that's a really good question. I think each of the last couple of years, we've had anywhere between 30 to 50 different eucalyptus in trial. And this is a crop that for us, it takes up a lot of time in the field. So we plant in May, and then at least for us in zone 5, we're not harvesting off of these until they don't start to get woody and are harvestable until in August into September. And then we leave them in the field until after frost to evaluate them for frost tolerance. So our farm team is usually trying to hustle and get the fields cleaned up, but
And you're like,
there's
don't
always
cut those yet.
yeah, it's like, please leave the eucalyptus. Please don't take the eucalyptus. And then usually by the time we're finished with the trial, we have trees like this that the farm has to kind of figure out a way to remove or to
To
manage.
chip.
So there, yeah.
One last question is David asked is that he said he had fun trying out the willow peppermint eucalyptus from Johnny's last season. Is that still in the rotation for 2024?
It is not. So
Okay.
you
All
could
right.
actually- It's not. We the source we have for that, we found it to be a little bit shorter than we'd like to see. And so we're looking into some replacements for willow peppermint that would have that same look, but provide more productivity.
Okay.
To be a little bit more vigorous and tall. So we're hoping to have, be patient with us. We hope to have something to fill that slot.
Yeah, he's agreeing. He said it was pretty short.
Okay.
That
great.
must be a little heartbreak. It must be a little heartbreaking when you have to sort of retire or cancel something that you loved, but it just wasn't performing at the, at the level you want.
It is, but if we know that we can beat it, we can get something better, then that makes it quite a bit easier. So
great. Before we go on, Hillary, were you going to say something else about this eucalyptus? I might have cut you off. I'm sorry.
I was just going to tease Joy and say that what she was trying to say about the eucalyptus trial is she only has 50, but she'd love to have a whole forest, but we won't let her. That's all.
She's only trying 50. Okay. I love it. Oh, yay. This is neat.
Oh yeah, this is one just kind of a fun sort of comparison photo of some of the different eucalyptus species that we've brought in over the last couple of years that have a different appearance again than what you might think of as the classic blue-green eucalyptus. And on the far left is the newest add, the Eucalyptus teraticornis, and then there's just a few others here for contrast.
Fun. And these are all available.
Yes, either available or soon should be available.
Okay. Okay.
We are waiting for a new seed crop on some of these.
Okay, so stay tuned.
Yeah. So I have the next one. It's Chantilly light salmon. I think many of your members would be quite familiar with the Chantilly series. It's pretty famous for those open face flowers that look almost have like a little bit of a gladiola look to them. And also it's one of the earliest series to flower. But this light salmon is new to Johnny's, and it's quickly become the most popular of the series. And you can see why. It's that super soft peachy apricot color that just plays so nicely with many other color palettes.
Before we started, we were talking about the Pantone color of the year, and lo and behold, Debbie Middleman has already weighed in and said this one hits the Pantone color of the year, peach fuzz. So you're on trend, Hillary and Joy.
So yeah, I think the photo says it all. I will just note for folks about growing this one. It's a group 1-2, so really meant for cool season growing. Depending on where you are, that's overwintering or winter or really early spring. And the reason for that is that they're really fast growing plants, and in those cool periods they do quite well, but in the summer they grow and flower a little bit too fast, so you end up with thin stems or short plants. So these ones are really bred for and best suited to cool season production.
Beautiful.
And then we have a little slug of snapdragons to work through.
Yeah. So I'll
You've got a lot of snapdragons. That's like your biggest category this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah, definitely.
Looking forward to meeting them.
So for the snapdragons, you know, as a crop, they're a really versatile crop, and both from a growing perspective and from a, you know, the end user or the design perspective, there's versatility on a couple different levels. And from a growing perspective, the snapdragons have, you know, Hillary was mentioning a little bit about the groups and the growing environments. There's a lot of breeding in snapdragons, and because of modern breeding, there are snapdragons that have been bred to perform under kind of a wide range of conditions, whether you're growing in under lower light and lower temperature conditions, maybe in the shoulder seasons or the winter, or under in a tunnel, or if you're growing in a, you know, in an open field or a garden under higher heat and higher light conditions, there are snapdragon groups that are better suited for those environments. And so when we think about offering a good assortment with snapdragons, especially, we're thinking about how can we offer a range of varieties that would allow growers to grow and offer snapdragons locally to their markets for as many months of the year as possible. And so with this Costa series, that's an example of adding a series there that they're probably not, they don't have, they're a group 2, so they won't have their optimal performance in the high heat and light of a, you know, a main summer field slot, but they're really well suited for growing under a little bit cooler temperatures and lower light conditions. And they'll, even under those conditions, these Costa varieties will, they'll form a really high quality flower and a sufficient stem length in those environments. So we've added several varieties from the Costa series, and that's what's on the, starting with this Costa white. And then we have several more colors on the following slides. So there's a Costa light rose, a really nice light pink.
Stunning.
A little bit of a darker pink option. So this is Costa rose. And then an even dark, almost more of a cherry pink. This is Costa deep rose, so more saturated colors. And then the last one, rounding it out, is Costa velvet, so a really beautiful deep red. And
Oh my
so,
gosh, these are stunning. A couple questions before we wrap up that Costa series. First of all, someone asked, how do you describe this flower type if it's not a Chantilly? Is there a different description that you use?
Yeah, that's a great question, a great distinction. So the Chantilly type has that open faced flower. This is more, I don't know if there's an actual term for this other than the like classic or standard snapdragon, where it has you know, it's a single floret. It doesn't have a double, like the, if you're familiar with like the Madame Butterfly series, that's an even different flower form where there's double bloom. But this is just the classic
True
snapdragon. Yeah. Would you, Hillary, would you agree, or
Yeah,
anything you'd add to that?
It's the one where you pinch the corners of the mouth there.
Yes.
And
I see Beth doing that.
Yeah.
snapdragon opens up.
When you do with children to show them that it's snapping, right?
Yeah.
Someone else asked, were these all grown outside or were they undercover when you trialed them?
So the Costa series were grown, let's see, both undercover. So we planted them in our spring tunnel planting, kind of what we would describe as probably the ideal slot for them. We planted in March and they flowered end of May, beginning of June. But we also trialed them in our field plantings as well. And, you know, when possible, we try to trial things in as many growing environments as we can on the farm, so that we can observe for crops like snapdragons where there is a response to day length and temperature, so that we can really understand the best environment for it. So the Costa series did get planted in the field. They did flower in the field, but they were definitely a little bit shorter in that field slot compared to how they performed in the tunnel, where it was a little cooler. So
good feedback. Those are stunning. Everybody's loving the colors.
Okay, so the next one is Avignon pink, and we have this slide here, and then we have a comparison slide that kind of shows where it sits in the spectrum of pinks. So Costa Silver, that first one, has been the blush pale pink snapdragon for us for quite a while. And it might seem like a subtle distinction, but the Avignon pink just has a little bit more oomph in terms of color, and Joy and I were really drawn to that. That just a little bit brighter, a little bit more saturated color for spring bouquets. So though the Costa Silver is very lovely and special, it is really pale and can, if you try to pair it with some colors that are a bit brighter or more saturated, it can almost wash out and read as white. So the Avignon pink just adds a little bit more depth of color. I think especially as I'd be interested to hear what folks have to say maybe after, but as we see color palettes become a little bit more rich and bright and playful, I think this is a nice one to sort of try and see how folks like it. It's still really soft, but it does have enough brightness, and there's also something about it. Joy described it as like a porcelain look, which I think is a really nice way to say it. So this Joy talked about group twos. This is a group two, also really meant for cool season growing.
So moving into we have a couple of different orange shaded snapdragons that we're offering, and this is these next two varieties are another example of kind of how we think about our select varieties for the assortment. So sometimes we are adding, series like the Costa series to round out what's available to grow over the whole course of the season, or wanting to make sure that there are options in kind of the classic or standard colors for people to grow, as many months of the year as they're able. And but then sometimes we're looking at what are the unique or special colors that maybe aren't available in every single series. There are a lot of snapdragon varieties out there in the world. There are a lot of series, and most series offer kind of a range of sort of classic. There's usually a white and a yellow and a couple of shades of pink and a red, but then not all of them, beyond that, they can kind of sometimes vary, and some of them offer really special unique colors. So this variety right here, this is Con light bronze. And so this is an example of one that really jumped out in the trial just for that kind of cantaloupe color on the blooms with that little bit of blush pink on the edge of the florets. And I found this really beautiful and unique in terms of that color combination. It's a little bit softer than kind of the standard orange snapdragon. And it also stood out just for the quality of the blooms, the uniformity of them, and they seem to pretty consistently present a really nice, elegant flower spike. One of the things that we look at is did the florets, are they spaced out very widely along the stem, or are they nice and contained? Is it a balanced bloom? And this variety kind of ticked all those boxes.
I think from a design point of view too, Joy, this is such a beautiful blender. It can go with a cool palette because of the pink, certainly go with a hotter, warmer palette because of the salmon and the melon. And so it's just like when you said versatile, it's like, that's exactly what I thought. Like it could go in any arrangement you make for the whole summer. It's that kind of perfect. Definitely.
Yeah. I really fell in love with this variety. This might be my favorite variety that we added this year. And it's one other note, it is a group 3, so it's really well suited for the higher light, higher temperature conditions that you would find just in a typical outdoor kind of summer growing season. So, and then this next one is another orange, kind of going to the other side of the orange spectrum. This is a much more saturated color with really more coral and rose and orange shades showing up here, much less of the gold coloring. So again, in kind of more classic or standard orange snapdragons, there's often some gold coloring on the florets, and this didn't have as much of that, and so seemed unique in that respect as well. Again, another group 3 option, so good for kind of main season summer field or garden growing. And then this slide I wanted to put in here because it can show maybe some of the challenges or the around naming or understanding color between different varieties and series. Not all orange or not all bronze snapdragons are created the same. And so this is just a snapshot of 4 different snapdragon varieties from 4 different series. And to show the differences between them, on the far left is Monaco orange, which is the most saturated and least gold coloring of all of them. Potomac orange is the next one, where you can really see that pop of gold on those florets. And then Opus early bronze it's not a new variety, but it's in here for comparison. And it definitely, I think bronze is a good name for this variety because it definitely has more of that orange and gold, less of the pink or rose. And then on the far right is the newest one, the Can light bronze, which you can hopefully see as, visually a really different kind of color palette than the Opus early bronze. But
it's really helpful. People are really appreciating the side-by-side slides because it just gives you a point of reference. Like, okay, this is the spectrum, and it's pretty broad.
Yeah. That's a good comment. We do our best to capture things as accurately as we can in photographs, but the varieties are photographed on different days, under different light, maybe a little bit different exposure. So you really, it's really hard to compare, side by side based on the photo, but having them all in one shot, under the same setting, can be
love it.
I think we'll do more of that in the future.
That's a happy day at the farm when you get to do those photos, right?
Exactly. So this is a good example. These are 2 photos of the same variety taken, at different points in time, and the color looks quite a bit different, I think, just based on the light and exposure. But this is another group 3, so pretty versatile, great for summer growing. Could also be grown in the spring or fall, would just take a little bit longer to bloom. It's Opus lavender. So lavender for us, and maybe for your members, is one of the most popular colors in Snapdragon, and so we try to have try to fill all the slots with lavender. And this one this one's really nice. Also, like Joy mentioned, a really tight full compact bloom column, so you can see there's almost no spaces between those florets. It's a nice chunky bloom, and the color is really quite nice. So it's lavender, but it's for us, we've observed it to be sort of the smokiest, most dusty lavender color of the snapdragons we've grown. So we really like this one.
Pretty.
Okay, we're out of snapdragons.
Never fear, there's some good stuff coming.
So this next set of varieties are all from the same series of stock. This is a brand new series that is new into the world this year. So they're called stocks with the capital X at the end of the word. And these are, we're just really excited about the colors on these 3 new varieties that we've added. And I'll say just a couple things about the series in general. That they have really nice sturdy stems and a quite upright plant habit. And so you can hopefully see from the photo here, that bunch is held a little bit diagonally, but you can see how those stems are kind of staying in that nice straight line and not bending or not kind of flexing or falling. So that's If you've grown series like the iron series, they're similar to the iron series in terms of their habit and the stem strength and quality. They don't have the movement that varieties like the cats series have. So those do have a little bit more of the movement, but we liked the sturdiness of the stems and the uniformity of the plants, and then the colors as well.
Jeez, gorgeous. This type of breeding, do you know why it happened? Because I know that in the past, some designers do pinch off the tips of traditional forms of stock because they don't like the tip. Is that sort of what this looks like? Is that someone's gone in and pinched out the tip? Do you have any idea?
I think, Deborah, some of depending on the variety and when and where the environment they're grown under, they can, just like snapdragons, they can elongate quite a bit more. And so sometimes you can almost see it, a little bit of it in the photo on the right there. Sometimes those blooms, they'll elongate at the top, and it can make, I think, more or less for all stock, less for some of these ones that have really compact bloom spikes. But the growing conditions can cause that elongation. It can be a little bit awkward in bouquets, so I can see why they would be pinched out.
But how nice to have this variety that's already kind of giving you that denser, compact, fluffy form as is. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, we kind of fell in love with this series and these colors. So this first color is antique rose. You can see a really nice, warm, kind of rosy, even almost a little bit brown coloring on these blooms. And it has a little bit of gold or peach just at the center of those florets. And then the next variety is champagne, and these are fun. These have a little bit more pronounced peach and gold at the center, and then pink around the edges. They almost have a bicolor look to these blooms, and these are really unique. They definitely stood out. I haven't seen a variety like this with this color pairing before.
Gorgeous.
And then the last one is Stock's Rose Pink. So this one reads just a little bit cooler. It doesn't have the gold or the peach at the center of the florets. It has, if anything, you'll see a little bit of white at the center. So still that kind of dusty rose, but a little bit on the cooler side of the palette.
And I'll just add that there are a few varieties on the market that are somewhat similar to these colors. Vintage brown, I think I have a slide on vintage brown, is one that's somewhat similar but quite a bit darker. But there's nothing, the colors are sort of totally new. There's nothing else that's exactly comparable in color. So really kind of it's not too often that we have a year where there's new colors coming in a classic cut, and so we get to be really excited about these.
Oh my God, you're right. These are just so arresting. I can't stop staring at them. And I do notice that on almost all of these, there's the edible icon and the fragrance icon. So these have they've got to check all the boxes of what a good cut flower can be for a grower.
Definitely. Yeah, these are pretty versatile as well. And I have this last slide here is to show just kind of where these new colors compare to some of the current varieties that listeners might already be familiar with. So on the far left is vintage brown, and then that's the most saturated kind of these dusty rose or plum colored blooms. So that's the darkest. And then next, just a few shades lighter, is the Stock's Antique Rose. Right in the middle is the Rose Pink, where you can see it's a little bit cooler with the white centers. The Stock Champagne starts to go a little bit more peach or apricot. And then on the far right, as a comparison, is Iron Apricot, where that peach is more pronounced. So
Mm.
again, just kind of helping to hopefully compare and show where these colors fit.
I mean, just order them all. Why have to choose one, right?
Hillary and I were debating when we started blooming in the trial. We're like, oh, they're quite they're similar to the vintage brown or to the apricot, but they're also beautiful and all kind of unique in their own way. And so we chose them all too. So
Love it.
We just decided
Love
we
it.
had to have all of them.
Good job.
We have a couple more stock slides. This one, so not a new color, just a classic white. But it's special in that early era white that most stock, when you purchase a packet of seed, you're going to get about 50 or 55% double flowering plants and about 45%, not sure, maybe I said that wrong, single flowering plants. And this one, if you really need or love the doubles, it produces 90% or more double flowering stems or plants. So I think, at least historically, the doubles have been really important for florists. They're just, quite a bit more full and fluffy. The singles are still useful for adding like whimsy and fragrance to bouquets, but the doubles have been sort of where it's at. So
I thought what you said when we were talking about this beforehand, and I was trying to understand that, you said it's really useful because a grower can then harvest the doubles and sell them a little bit higher premium for florists, but the singles still look gorgeous in mixed bouquets or more market bouquets. And so it sort of gives you that choice, but this particular selection has a much higher percentage of doubles, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Wow.
Yep. So if it's the doubles you're after, this can be really helpful in terms of space saving. And yeah, it's also fragrant and edible, and has really, as Joy mentioned, similar to the Iron series, has really straight, uniform, sturdy stems. Really nice for harvest, efficient harvest and packing. And Joy also said if a little more movement is what you want, then the Cat series is a good one. And that series has a wide range of colors, including a high double white.
These doubles or these arrows, Beth asks if she's read it's advised to not thin out the larger seedlings as they tend to be singles. Is that something you've experienced, Joy, in trial?
I'm not sure about, so usually if you are looking to there are some series of stocks where you can select at the seedling stage based on visual differences in the seedlings for single or double flowering plants. My experience is that has been more to do with a difference in color in the seedling, so a lighter or a darker color corresponding to the double or the single flowering plants. Sometimes there can be maybe a difference in vigor, but I've seen that more described in terms of color. I don't know, Hillary, do you have anything to add?
I think that's largely accurate. I've seen it noted there could be difference in vigor and then also difference in the shape of the cotyledon, but that seems quite inconsistent with what we've seen. Just what you said, Joy, the color is kind of the thing to look for.
And just one more question, because I know we're going to wrap up here. We have a few more juicy flowers to see, so I'll stop interrupting you. But Carrie is asking, what spacing is advised for the double varieties? I usually plant 2 to 3 per 6-inch square. I hope I'm asking that question correct. Is the spacing, because this is a mix, you really don't know when you plant it, right?
Right, unless you're doing, the select, I would say, for growing purposes, the double flowering plants don't really take up a whole lot more space as they're blooming than the single flowering ones. And so we typically would do the same spacing. We do 6 by 6 inch spacing, but I also know that growers do, it sounds like what this person is describing, like a couple even a couple plants per 6-inch cell or between, yeah. So I think that seems consistent with,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, we are running out of time, I think, so we'll try to talk a little faster. This is not a new variety, but just a little bit of an update that I thought people might want to know about. So that vintage brown stock that we sort of mentioned throughout this little stock segment, and probably folks are familiar with, has been, the color has been updated a bit. So the color at the center used to be more of a pale pink or a or a white, just that little splash of color at the very center, and it's been updated to show a little bit more gold or like a peachy gold color, and it just gives the overall flower just a little bit more of a warm glow. And we've trialed it for a couple of years now, and the performance, there's no change in performance, is very consistent, but that just had a little bit of shift in color, and we think, you know, makes it even that much more nicer.
Gorgeous, really rich.
So.
Mm.
We have a couple Strawflower, and just, you know, really quickly, just a couple color additions to what we already offer. This is a bright hot pink, really nice summer color. And then we have this red. We have a couple different reds in the assortment already. This one's different in that it's a deeper, more sort of burgundy brick red, really nice color for fall arrangements.
Gorgeous.
Rich red. And both of these, the color on both of these dry really well.
All right, well, we have a couple of really nice branching sunflower varieties that we've added to that are, I'll talk briefly about both of them. This first one is Desert Sun, and this is a nice tall plant, densely branching habit, but the thing that really stood out in trial was the sturdiness of the stems. And so if you've grown branching sunflowers, you might have observed that sometimes the stems tend to be a little bit more flexible or have more movement to them. This one had a really upright habit, and I found the stems quite sturdy and easy to harvest, or easy to clean and process. And then they just really support those blooms really nicely. And then in addition to those things, the color of these was so striking in the field, that really strong contrast between the lemon on the outer edge and then the dark red around the disc, really made this one kind of a winner. And then the next variety, Summer Lovin', is another really beautiful bicolor sunflower. And then this one, compared to Desert Sun, you can see from the photos, there's a little bit more of a range in the color palette on the blooms. So bicolor blooms, but a little bit of a fun range, a little bit more lemon and some softer colors in there. Also has a really vigorous, tall, densely branching habit. It flowers a little bit earlier than Desert Sun, and so could be a good pairing, seeding both at the same time and getting a little bit of a succession of bicolor blooms. And I think the last slide is just a quick comparison of the two new ones, along with a one that's been in the assortment for a while. On the left is Strawberry Blonde, which has a little bit of that sort of moodier palette, and then Desert Sun in the middle and Summer Lovin' on the right-hand side.
I love that comparison. I want them all.
You can,
there you
have
go.
a nice seed them all and have an extended bicolor sunflower harvest. So
I love it.
Okay, I think this is the last one, so I guess we are doing well. This is a pansy, and I'll say, I think when you know, we trial pansies pretty much exclusively for cut flower quality. So for us, we need to overwinter them in a greenhouse for spring blooms to get the stem length that's needed for cuts. And I think we've been trialing pansies for cuts for about 4 or 5 years. And when we first started, you know, I think we both were a little bit skeptical about what sort of quality we might encounter. And we've been really impressed overall with pansies for cuts. The stems are surprisingly tall and durable. The blooms add really nice fragrance to spring bouquet. And just that little bit of frilly greenery does really kind of help fill out bouquets with tulips or anemone and ranunculus. So we've been really impressed. And we're working to source more varieties that work for cut flowers in that slot. And so this is a nice one, a really wide range of colors, but it's not, you know, too loud. And we found it to have really nice stems for cuts.
Pretty.
And this is just a shot to show a little bit better the color range. And then
the stems are long.
Yeah, long and thick.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh, you guys, this has been so beautiful. Is that the last slide?
I think it is. Yeah.
Okay. First of all, this is just so impressive, and you were just so generous with your knowledge to share. Lots of good chatter in the chat. A couple questions about availability. Someone asked when is everything we looked at today available for order now?
So mostly, so the way this cycle works is we typically add a slug of new things to the website in November and the catalog. At that time, sometimes we're still waiting for new crops of seed, and we try to have as much in stock for advertising the new catalog and website as we can, but often we're still waiting. And so for most things, there really shouldn't be anything that's sold out at this point, but we might have things that we're still waiting on.
I see. So can you have a back order on those, or what do you recommend with just the ordering system?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a mix. So some things, if we're quite certain that we're going to receive the seed within a month or 2 months, we'll set them up so you can enter a back order. Okay. But if it's going to be a little bit later than that, or we have we're a little bit unsure about the exact date, they will show as out of stock. We won't allow a back order until we have some really good information about when we're going to get that seed.
Because you don't want people to be frustrated on that part.
Exactly. Yeah, we try.
I will just pop up on the website of Johnny's website, if you go to it here, because not everything is necessarily in the catalog. So if you go to flowers and you select new for 2024, there's a lot more than we saw today. And you can see some, like, we didn't talk about the zinnias because they're more for the home gardener, but there's other varieties of Strawflower and snaps, and you just keep getting this lovely choice of choose 12 more, and then there's more. So do you want to just talk a little bit about the difference between what's available online and versus if people have received the catalog?
Yeah, so thanks, Deborah. There's definitely always more online than in the catalog. Unfortunately, we're sort of limited by space in the paper catalog. What we really need is our own flower catalog. I hope someday, maybe that'll happen. But the website is really the place to find all the new things, because there's unlimited space on a website.
Yeah.
We're also, like I mentioned, we do try to launch all the new products in November, but we're also, there's things we're still working on, or things that the seed just comes a little bit later. So we're there's also a constant trickle of new things throughout the year.
And I will say, if you subscribe to the Johnny's newsletter, which you can do on the website, you'll get, frequently, updated details and fun stories, including some that I write for Johnny's. And we're working on a story right now about edible flowers. So that's another way for people to get sort of up to the date information about new introductions, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, this has been fun, and so I mean, people are just putting funny comments in the chat about like they're filling up their shopping cart right now as we talk on the Johnny's website. So look forward to a little blitz of flurry of orders, I think, especially for that stock series. You two are so knowledgeable, and I so appreciate all that you shared. And before we wrap up, Joy and Hillary said that they're going to put together one special collection of 2024 flower seeds that one of our participants will receive, and we'll do a drawing on Monday and let you know. So that could become sort of an early holiday gift. But if you've put your name in the chat and let me know that you're here, I will send you this trio of seeds that some of you may have already received from our survey thank yous, but I'd love to share because Johnny's is so generous. I have a little shoebox full of extra cosmos, calendula, and Strawflower seeds. So look for those in the mail too. And I thank you all for joining us. Our next meetup will be the second Friday in January, and we don't have the speaker lined up yet, so just look for that announcement in the Slow Flowers newsletter. And I wish you all a very happy holiday season, and get those seed catalogs, cozy by the fire and make your plans. And I think we're all going to have a lot of fun growing some of these varieties next year. So thank you so much, Joy and Hillary. And thanks everybody for joining us today.
Thanks, Deborah.
Bye. Thanks, Deborah.